We're we're on. All right. Hello, world. It's me, Dennis, and I'm on with my friend, Andrea Dawson. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, how are you?
Musician, entrepreneur, social activist. And if you don't know Andrea, you should see our earlier show that you and I did, where we'll talk about much more about your history. But I want to talk about tonight. I'm interested in how did you learn to write music? What did you did this song circle, right?
Right, we did a song game, they call it. That was the most recent, biggest attempt, was the song game.
Mm-hmm.
So the song game involves songwriters, very talented songwriters, all the way down to novice songwriters. And it's right now it's a Facebook group, but it began as just a Yahoo group. And there was an administrator who would select a topic or select a prompt that you had to include in your song.
Ah.
And so everyone would submit their song. You had 1 week to do it by the midnight on Sunday. And so that just pressured you to actually produce something during that week.
Isn't it something to get out of that critical voice? Doesn't it help to be able to get past that one that says, oh, well, yeah, this is none of it?
Oh, yeah, many songs I sent that I just dreaded sending, but I sent it anyway. And so, yeah, that feels really good to get that out.
Shall we start on one?
Sure. Let's see. This is one that I got out of the song game. We're going to go straight to body.
Let's go.
So there was a prompt that was given to us that was Dolphins of France. So apparently he had a little bit of a humor streak, and he just thought, I'll just put one out there that'll be difficult for everyone. So it was. So this is my song that I used Dolphins of France in. Well, my friend got back from Colorado, y'all, just the other day. Brought back some fine medicinal, pretty potent stuff, I must say. Warned me not to try the Blue Kush, it was the strongest one on the scene. But I was stressed, didn't want to hear that mess, and so I played something that day. So you're going to get everything. Well, the rapper came with a waiver and an addendum that he claused. He pleaded again, I didn't listen to him, he just shook his head, oh Lord. He said, don't smoke the blue weed, the blue weed, the blue weed. You ain't ready for all this blue weed, the blue weed, the blue weed. Ooh wee, ooh wee, you ain't ready for this blue weed. Now I stumbled into the kitchen to find myself a bite to eat. The toaster had an attitude, she was a-rolling her eyes at me. The stove and the washer, they were twerking this here funky dance. But then I think I saw in my sink the tiny dolphins of France. They're singing, don't smoke the blue weed, the blue weed, the blue weed. Ooh wee, ooh wee, you ain't ready for this blue weed, the blue weed, the blue weed. You ain't ready for this blue weed. So that was my song from that game.
How wonderful.
Thank you.
You know, musicians and marijuana have been a very, I mean, when I think, I was trying to wonder how did marijuana first, did it happen that there was a lightning strike and our ancestors were going down and just going past this field and suddenly went, what's on fire? That's not, and suddenly, how do you discover something like that? I can't even imagine.
Exactly. Well, I think it probably evolved just like everything else did, but Yeah, for medicinal purposes, of course, in the very
Yep.
beginning. But yeah, and still is.
It is, and that's the thing that I'm
Uh-huh.
wondering. We seem to be coming to our senses in the United
Yes,
States
finally.
about what we have done in our incarceration
Oh
rates,
my goodness, yes.
what we
Mm,
have
mm,
done
mm.
in the it's just been horrible.
Mm, mm, mm. I mean, the history books are going to look back at this period and just wonder, what were we thinking?
Yeah,
So crazy. Yeah, yeah. I mean, lives have been totally ruined, families broken apart, um, just incredible devastation over just that,
I know.
over something now that's legal. I mean, there are men who grew up and will never be able to live out their potential. I
Yep,
mean, a lot of those people are a lot of people you see down at the Arc Center. You know, they
yep.
were busted in their teenage years for weed, and they were never able to get their footing back, and just fell down into the well. And there's no uh, programs to lift them out of that. Now it was their fault for doing it in the first place, type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
got to figure out some way. This is one of the things that I'm grateful that there are so many presidential candidates
Mhm.
now, is that we're actually going to be talking about this. I
Mm.
mean, they're talking about, some of the candidates are talking about how going back and expunging records and
Mhm.
getting this out. It's really something that we have to
Mhm.
address if we're going to have a
Mhm.
just society.
Mhm. Mhm. Very much so. And I'm hoping that is what will happen. But it's the battle of good and evil. I mean, there's some people out there who are still evil, even though it was. I mean, I had people on Facebook that just says, "Well, it was illegal then, and they have to pay the price,"
Yeah.
and they don't see any gray areas whatsoever. They're just, black and white, figuratively, and so there's just no convincing them otherwise.
And that's the whole thing about when we talk about illegal, is that what does that mean? I mean,
Mhm.
I know that there's a law at the time, and there are
Mhm.
different ways that we interpret the law,
Mhm.
but is there anyone in the United States that actually thinks
Mhm.
that a wealthy person
Mhm.
has the same legal rights as a poor person?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
just doesn't work that way. The legal
Mhm.
system is not, it's not designed that way,
Mhm.
and we have to figure out some other way to get ourselves to justice.
Right, right, right. It's gonna really take a huge awakening through lots of segments of society for that to come apart. Or we're gonna have to be able to say this is right and this is wrong, and we don't care that you feel otherwise.
Yeah.
But and it's been that way forever, except the people who were saying this is right, this is wrong, they were the ones with the money, and so they were the ones who tell us what is right and what is wrong, even though in our heart of hearts we knew that was not the right thing to do.
That's what
Mhm.
we got to figure out. I mean, I think about it, Andrea. What does in this world, what does enough
Mhm.
mean?
Mm. Good question.
I mean, I've talked about this
Mhm.
with my wife, and so we've tried to come
Mhm.
up with a number.
Mhm.
Say, okay, if we reach this number,
Mhm. Mhm.
anything that goes over that number,
Mhm. Mhm.
we give away.
Right.
But at least we will know. We
Mhm.
will know if we hit it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I wonder about that, because
Mhm.
not, I don't mean not judging, because
Mhm.
I am judgy,
Mhm.
and I do that. But I try to understand
Mhm.
if someone has $2 billion,
Mhm.
that's either enough, or is that enough?
Mhm. Mhm.
What does that
Mhm.
mean?
Oh, wow, well, I think a lot of people figure out what enough is whenever it applies to them. Just like whenever Nancy Reagan finally came around to stem cell um, treatment, whenever Ronald Reagan was the benefactor of it, that it was going to help him. Now all of a sudden she was on the train for that. So whenever things are for affect them, and then all of a sudden they can see, and it's enough. We're going to put our foot down. We're going to pass laws against it because now it is hit home for them.
Mhm.
But I think it's just a matter of empathy that is just missing from a lot of people and a lot of different sectors of the world that don't have empathy, or they deny empathy if they ever did have it.
I grew up in such a homogenous world. I mean, it was so segregated. It was. I grew up in the Jim Crow South. So I got a chance to, I experienced it from the white male privileged side. And I look at the families today when I go into a place like Sprouts and I see all the, I look and I see the blended families, and I see this wonderful mixtures, and it just heartens me. I just say, thank God we've got a chance to really, because what would it look like? What would it look like when this epidermis was just a color? It was a color like my glasses. It was a color like this beautiful skin is a color. It's a color like we have colors like we have. And so?
Right. And that color comes with privilege, though. So even if we were able to just see each other as, just a color, there's still privilege to some of the color and not for other colors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see, how we can get past. That's what I mean, if I know in the gay rights movement, when more people recognized within their families, within their companies, within their organizations, that there were LGBTQ people within their organization, suddenly there was more acceptance. We began to see it, and then we saw marriage equality. Can we see that racially too?
Not without the financial part of it. I mean, that is the linchpin. It's an economic. It has never been about color. It's always been about economics. It was economics in the beginning. The reason why Africans are here is economic.
Yeah.
And it's going to be economic to find a solution for it, because there's just no two ways about it, and nobody wants to talk about that, because they still think that if this person gets something, that means I get less.
Exactly. And that's the zero-sum thinking. When we know that's not true, economists know that the rising tide does raise all boats, and that we actually, the pie becomes bigger.
Yes.
If we empower one another.
Exactly.
The amazing story, and I recommend everyone to see the last show that we did, because Andrea talked about how you were able to get start your restaurant, start your mobile, your food truck, because of the grace of somebody who believed in you.
Exactly, and was able to afford to help me get to the next level. And I think that there are so many people that just need a helping hand. What do they call that? The guaranteed living income or something like that, where they just pay people, $1,000 a month or what have you. I mean, I think that would go a long way to lifting the tide for everyone. But a lot of people don't want to do that or even hear that, because they think that's $1,000 out of their pocket, whenever it's $1,000 from society. It could be taken from, different places all over the place. I mean, if you're able to raise a tide for everyone, they will put that money back into society. It's not like they're going to take it and put it in their pocket. That's what the rich do. But if it's a poor person, they spend that money.
It is, and there's also, I want to go back to a even more basic assumption. Let's make an assumption: do people just want to lay around, or are people purpose-driven? As a being, I'm talking about as our nature. And I believe our nature is purpose-driven, that if people want to contribute, they want to be part of something bigger. This is baked in. You don't have to fix it. People don't just want to lay around. That you have, probably if you had an entire spectrum, that they're just that the same percentage of lazy takers percentage of rich people, the same percentage of the poor people. It's the same, just like that we know within drugs, that African Americans and whites and people of color have smoke at or use drugs at about the same percentages. It's the same way. It's the same way with, and so if we know that, then we give a guarantee. I believe that it would absolutely.
It would change the entire face of our entire structure, and I think it would be a good thing. But they're still not going to go for that. But we need to have people that just put their foot down and just say, this is the way it's going to be.
Yep.
There's just no two ways about it. I mean, you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it, but you cannot have the input of people who, and most of them are Christian-based,
yes.
That are the ones that will say no. I mean,
it's an interesting
Lord
that we,
have mercy.
It's interesting we would say that, and even I was watching Beto O'Rourke, and so he was talking about reparations, and he was talking about that the root of that word is to repair. And that is what we can do, and by having enterprise zones and by actually going into the communities and building them from the inside out, we can do this.
I agree, very much so. I mean, even inside of the communities, I mean, before there was segregation, before there was integration in the segregated communities, there was industry, there for those people, and they thrived. But with integration, they all fell apart, which also the underpinning for that society. But and I think that they left out the other part of the financial, integration.
Exactly.
And yeah. If they were able to do both of those at the same time, I think that it would have worked. But they were able to just say, okay, well, you can go to school with us, but we're not going to make sure that you get jobs or make sure that you work in the same areas that we do at the same numbers. Yeah, because then that would be affirmative action.
Yes.
But
it works.
It does work. When you do affirmative action, it works. I mean, and now they've turned it into a dirty word where it was never supposed to be that.
No.
It still is not a dirty word.
Well, but I was thinking about that, Andrea, because I was looking up in 1948, the year I was born, the Baltimore Bullets won the NBA championship. Now, there were no African Americans on the team. So I'm wondering, all right, so they're the NBA champions. Now, I would like to put those players up against the Toronto Raptors. So you can see why as I grew up, I grew up not only in privilege, but I didn't have to compete against. So that's where I think the fear comes. The fear comes to now suddenly I have to compete against Asians and Indians and African Americans and Romanians, and I compete a lot harder than it used to be when I could.
When you had a guarantee for everything.
Yeah.
So what that does is that makes you think. It brings in a fear factor of, well, then who am I? Am I really as great as I thought I was?
Yep.
And so then that messes with their self-esteem. Like I'm, instead of Black people, we go through who am I and am I good enough all the time. But now that they have to do that, now there's a problem.
You can actually say you. Because now that you have to do that, Dennis, that's what the problem.
We have to always think that. But now that you have to think that, now you have doubts about who you are and how powerful you are and how ordained you are for real. Is my blood really royal?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that gets us to a place. So now we get a chance to be able to say, okay, now who are we? Who are we in this time when the machines are coming up, and we're having artificial intelligence, and we're having all these changes, and we're leaving the planet. Who are we? Who am I? And how can I define it in a way that can be successful for all of us? How is that possible?
That's the thing. Successful for all of us. Right. It has to be a community type of question. It's not just an individual question. It's like, who are we as a community, as a world? You know, do we want to be someone who is afraid to compete, or are we want to be someone who is anxious to love and to bring more people in and to see how well we can develop a society? Yeah. And I think that just goes to the base level of who people are. You know, are you someone who is fearful, or are you someone who is giving? And I think that's always been the biggest battle.
It always is. Whenever I feel fearful, I go small. I grow protective. And so it's really a key to my learning and growth. That's what I agree.
Yeah.
What else are you going to play for us tonight?
Let me see. Well, I'm in the song game again. So we just started a new lesson. So our last lesson was that we needed to write a song that had, nonsensical words in it, or words that were like didn't mean anything, so sounds. And then the next one is that we have to write a storyline, like an entire ballad of someone. So that's what I'm working on. So this one is a song that I started out, but I don't have all the parts to it yet.
Okay.
Do you want to hear that one?
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, let's have some pieces.
All right. So this is a song that right now I in my own song process, I just always look at what is on my heart the hardest. You know, at that particular time. And on the back of my guitar here, if you turn over, it says, "Where have all the hippies gone?" And so this is what this song is like. Where have all the hippies gone? Where have all the hippies gone? Ain't this the sitting and you've been sitting in for? Have they placated you with the smoke? Have they placated you with the right to toke? Singing do, 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 yeah. Where have all the preachers gone? Where have all the preachers gone? Ain't this the thing that you've been praying on? Ain't this the thing that you've been praying on? Have they placated you with the fetus to rule women and defeat us? Singing do, 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 do. Oh, where have all the hippies gone? Where have all the hippies gone? Singing do, 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 do. Where have all the revolutionaries gone? Where have all the revolutionaries gone? Ain't this a thing that you've been marching on? Have they placated you with the book of faces? Have they placated you with the network? Singing do, 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 do. Where have all my hippies gone? Where have all my hippies gone? Where have all my hippies gone? Singing do, 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 yeah.
So out of the Beat generation in the 50s came the hippies, came the 60s. So what is your connection to that?
Well, I was, after that was my very earliest remembrance is Martin Luther King being assassinated and John F. Kennedy assassination. That's my biggest, so I saw the falling apart of that generation.
Right.
Yeah. So Helter Skelter and the trials and, all those type of things looked like all the hippies were just being torn apart. The Black Panther, my first impression of Black Panthers were that we were in the city. I was a country girl, and so my mom would send us to the city for summertime. And so the Black Panthers was just a place where you went to go get breakfast. We would breakfast. I never say that word.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we would go to the school playground because they wouldn't let us into the school. So they would just set up tables on the playground, and all the kids would go there, and we would eat breakfast, and they would teach us songs, and then we would just happily go back home. So I never saw them as some type of threat organization whatsoever. It was just, and they were all, Black men and women, young teenagers that we looked up to. So that was the impression that I got as a young person. But it seemed like there was always this crackling in the air that something was, going to be good coming out of it. Like, there was, some good. And then it just looked like everything disintegrated, But I still see remnants of, the hippie culture, but so many of them are just, now they're just into, the tiny home movement, all of these other, extraneous focuses. And it seems like that cohesive unit is just gone. And I know they're still here somewhere. They haven't, there's still a lot of them. What are they going to be like?
There's got to be
your age, no.
They are.
Yeah,
they are.
Yeah.
Because I was I graduated in 1966 from high school.
Yeah.
So that put me right in the middle of that time. Now I wasn't there intellectually. I couldn't have gotten. I wasn't there emotionally. And so it took me a while to begin to get consciousness, to learn a little bit more about what this was about. I couldn't figure out. Now, being a guy, I thought free love, great idea.
Okay.
Great idea.
Great
I'm in.
idea.
Let's go ahead. I mean, whatever gets me into consciousness, right?
Right.
All right. So
I'll sacrifice.
Yes. I'll grow. I'll get better. Yes, of course I will. But we did. Eventually, I began, but I could only see it in retrospect and to see what kind, just exactly what it took to rebel against society, to rebel against the way things were. And so then we had the not just the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement, and it was an extraordinary time to be around.
So they said that a lot of those. So what do you think happened to that particular group of people?
It's an interesting. I love the way you put it. That it's a dispersion. It's like it dispersed into, but there isn't a cohesive pull. The only thing that I have seen a backlash about is because we have a president of the United States now, currently, Donald J. Trump, that people are coalescing around as if it were against the war. But it's more of what we're against. But I want to know what am I for? What are we for? What are we going to replace this with? If we're going to change our presidency and change what we're doing, what are we going to replace it with? I want to know what we're for, not just what we're against.
Right. Well, for me personally, because I'm so devastated by Trump being there at this particular time, he just needs to be gone, regardless of, all the other issues. And that's what the biggest problem that I have with the Democratic Party is that we're so fractured because everybody wants to fight for their own pet peeve, thing, and I can understand that.
Yep.
But let's like get together to take back the country, and then we can fight for those little things. But instead, we have people saying, "Oh, don't vote for that person because they're a corporate Democrat," and I'm like, I can always work with a corporate Democrat. Oh, do you mean the Democrats that fought for civil rights? Oh, those Democrats? You mean the Democrats that fought for Head Start programs, for clean water, clean air, all these many years? Now all of a sudden they're totally useless.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have one of those people that I can at least influence, or to try and have a meeting of the minds than to have another Republican in office. I'm just gonna say it.
I appreciate that because what my thought about it is that it's so much easier to tear something down than to build something up.
Exactly.
It's hard to build something.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
You want to do something. You want to deal with racial inequality. You want to build. Oh, now that's hard. Take money away from. Keep things away. That's easy. This is the hard work. It's complicated, and it requires all of us getting in there, rolling up our sleeves together. And that's what I love about the Democratic Party, is that we understand that it is complicated. It is it is messy, and we're going to step on each other's toes, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to figure it out. And we're going to start, then we're going to roll back. We're going to do it again, get it better.
Exactly. And that's the problem that I have with people who always say, the Democrats don't, or the Democrats are doing this or that, or this is the thing that bothers me about the Democrats. And I'm like, but aren't you a Democrat? And it'll be like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? So and they think of the Democratic Party as them over there. And the Democratic Party is a party. It is everybody.
Yeah.
It is not some nebulous organization out there that you have to send out orders to. You are it. The party is made of people, and you are part of the party. So what are you going to do about what you're, talking about? So you can't just put all the blame on the party.
No, and it isn't, because I have to look at myself. What is mine to do? What am I willing to get out and to get involved in and to be part of, or am I just going to sit back? I mean, I'll see myself sitting on the sofa, and I'll be talking to the TV set, or I'll get all in umbrage. Oh man, I like my umbrage. I like that fine umbrage.
That's what Facebook is for.
Yeah. But that's not that's
it's not doing anything.
It's not doing it.
It's not doing anything, and they're so happy that they have that, so that we can have something to use up all of that energy on, instead of actually getting out there in the streets and meeting each other in person. We've got to get off Facebook. Facebook should only be there to tell us the time and date and where to meet. Everybody is on Facebook waiting for the call. They're all waiting to say, okay, everyone, we're meeting here, and this is going to change society. But instead, we're on there just bickering about stuff. It should only be there because we've got to start meeting in person, face to face.
Exactly.
In town halls. I mean, it doesn't matter who is calling a town hall. Somebody do it, know. Yeah.
We're a tribal species. I believe that's who we are. I think that we're built this way. We're built to connect, and that when we're not connected, that's when the dysfunction starts. When we get off into these little individual, non-connected, then suddenly it starts.
Well, we're always going to have that, but I mean that's why we have language, and that's why we have communication and thought, and we can figure stuff out together.
Yep.
But we got to do it in person. Not the Facebook is just a way for us to use that energy up and to spin our wheels.
Yep.
It really is. And once we're all on the same page and for one particular thing, which we can all get behind, one thing right now, and that's to have Trump out of office and to take back the country. you know, and that should be our ultimate goal, and not fighting amongst ourselves about who is doing enough and who's not doing enough.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because there is. I mean, enough is enough,
Mhm.
and that's what we can. Well, play us off.
Mhm.
Why don't you play
Let me
something?
see.
What do you?
Well, I wish I was wanted to bring a song, but I can't remember how to play it though. That's a bad thing. Um, it was a song I wrote last semester, and it was a country song, which is probably another reason why I can't sing it. But it is about a guy in a small Confederate town, is what he continues to say. That his talking about how much he loves his grandson, his boy's boy, and that's the name of the song, the boy's boy. And but the boy's boy is African American because his son married a black woman.
Yeah.
And so then he comes to town and he's talking about all of the issues that he runs into from his old friends that, you know, at the barber shop and down at the country store and, you know, hardware store and stuff like that. So those are, you know, some of the issues that I try to bring forward in a lot of my other songs. I wish I could play that one, but I just wanted to tell you about.
All right, but that's oh God, what a great. But there is a story. There is a story there that I would follow, because that forces him.
Yes, to come to grips with a lot of things, and he has such love for this child that it forces him to confront other racists in the town that he knows that they're racist. There's no, you know, he's always known. And so now he's bringing his black child around these other men, and he's making sure that they respect him, and that he has to re-educate them and tell them how it's not going to be, how it's going to be and how it's not going to be around his child and around his family.
God, that is.
So you know, there's a lot of room for issues around race, and about correcting some of not only the financial side but also the societal side. You know, they go hand in hand.
Yes.
And I see a lot of older white people are waking up to the needs of African Americans, because now it's in their family, and so they have to confront it.
That's what excites me. It really, I think that is a huge opportunity, because I know that when we get a chance to get to know each other, once we get past our fear of the other, everything drops.
Exactly.
Now we can say, well, who are you? Who is that driving around inside of there? And it just, you know, what are your perspectives, and what are your interests, and what makes you laugh and cry and howl at the moon?
Right, right. You're not just an other. You're like me, but what are you in there?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, you guys, I'm going to take a short break right now.
Okay.
All right.
I want to chat with you both a little bit.
Okay.
That's great. Are you hearing me?
We lost somehow it.
Uh-oh.
And
were you saying stop?
Yes, I was saying other things.
Yeah, I heard you. It was off and on, and I don't know why, and I don't know why it was. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to put this in my pocket here, so it'll be closer to.
Okay.
So I think.
Right back. I'm going to push stop on the recording.
Okay. So we went over time?
Doesn't matter. We can always fade down.
Okay.
But then we'll go and we'll pick up.